Peter Costa joins us right now. He is a former governor on the New York Stock Exchange, market analyst with CNBC. And boy, there is a lot to analyze right now. Peter, thanks as always for joining us. Great to see you, my friend.
Great to be here, Richard. Thank you for inviting me back.
What do you make of the announcement that came yesterday from J.P. Morgan where they said we are getting rid of our prediction that a recession is on the way? As we've talked over the last couple of months, you've said that you think that the conditions are ripe for a recession. Have you changed your opinion? And what went into that decision from J.P. Morgan?
Well, what went into it is seeing that the inflation is under control. I mean, it really is. Coming in yesterday's CPI number, I think maybe they jumped the gun a little bit, though, because we're responding right now to information that we're getting and data we're getting that is prior or just at the beginning of when the Chinese tariffs took hold, and when the stuff that they've shipped to the U.S. that's now at ports, that will be reflected in the next report. So do I think that we're going to be in any kind of deep recession? I don't think I might have said that I don't think we're going to be in a deep recession, but I still think we will see some indications of recession over the next 6 months. And, JP Morgan, I think, it's rare you see a big bank or a big investment house doing about face. So I give them a lot of credit for, rethinking and going back over the numbers and looking at their projections and deciding that they don't think that's a recession is in the offing. I give them credit for that, but I still believe that there will be a small, slight recession. It doesn't only have to do with tariffs. It has to do with housing. I mean, even though I saw some numbers this morning that the housing market is actually still fairly strong, but I've seen numbers where you see the permits are down. There's a lot of things that are kind of leading to me believe that, with the slowdown in housing, you do tend to get some sort of recessionary impact. So that's one of the reasons I'm basing my opinion.
We know that everything, all the news that we hear, all the headlines that we see seem to be politically driven. And depending on what your perspective is politically, that seems to be how you view an issue. Probably a really bad way to consume news. When you see Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, and others who are Democrats come out and say that the United States got screwed by China, that we lost the deal, that Trump is a chump, and all of these things, I don't look at the deal that they landed on and see those things. Does that mean I'm stupid, or those guys are just flat out lying and they think they can go unchecked in saying that?
I think, you mentioned two people I wouldn't trust with my last quarter or my first quarter. But one of the things that it's funny because they complained when President Trump imposed those tariffs, said it's going to be, disastrous for the U.S. economy. Now that Trump and the Chinese government have negotiated, at least temporarily, a better situation for both countries, now they're talking like, we lost the deal. It's like, I mean, I don't want to get into too much of a political ramble, but I can tell you that the Democrats are a ship that has no steering, and they are completely clueless. And I think that Schumer and Jeffries especially, I do think they're lying. I do think that they're just trying, no matter what they can do, they're just trying to make President Trump look stupid or look like a failure. And you walk away from a deal that if this carries forward and this becomes a permanent deal, I don't think it's the greatest outcome for the U.S., and I don't think it's the greatest outcome for China. But when you have negotiation,
which means it's a good deal, right?
What's that? I'm sorry?
Doesn't that kind of by definition mean that it's a good deal? That's what happens when you negotiate. Neither side gets a perfect outcome?
Yes, that was what the point I was going to get to, is that neither side is walking away waving. I mean, the Chinese might be, but that's just the nature of the Chinese government. They'll, if they take 1 inch, they say they took a mile. But the reality is there was a lot of negotiations. There was a lot of give and take. And I think that if this works out to be a permanent solution, the U.S. can live with it. We will have higher prices on certain things, of course. But I think that we are starting to level the playing field. It's going to take a very long time to level the playing field with the Chinese. It took a long time to get them to have such an advantage over the U.S. economy. But
Right.
this is a great start. And to have the Democrats come across and say that we failed is, to me, is just it's just anything that Donald Trump does, you know, they have to put a negative spin on it. And to me, I think that's just when you don't have anything, all you do is try to blame everyone. And that's exactly what the Democrats right now are. They have no leadership. They have no agenda. They have no idea what they're doing. So shoot at
We've
Donald Trump.
also seen we've also seen commentators that are more right leaning that have said, what was the point in the whole tariff shakeup? The market is back where it was. The trade deal is roughly what it was. I feel like that's not 100% accurate. I guess the question here is, was there method to the madness in terms of pushing that tariff number up to 145%? The market did not respond well. Those were slowly rolled back. But ultimately, was it worth it to get the deal that the two sides seem to have reached?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I'm not a big fan of tariffs. I don't think it's a great negotiating tool, but to get the Chinese to sit down at a table and actually agree to move the needle in any direction that's not pointed towards the Chinese, to me, is a good thing. So, do I think this is the best deal that we could ever work out? No, I don't. I think there's a lot of things that we could have done differently, but shooting high, it's looks like that's going to be the Trump, that's going to be the way he's going to handle these things. He's going to shoot high, negotiate down, and get to a point where, he feels and his negotiators feel that we have done the best we can. And I'm backing that. I hate the idea of tariffs, but if this is the negotiating tool to move the needle to give the U.S. at least some advantage, I think it's a good thing. So, you know what? The short-term picture is not good, but the long-term picture, I still believe the long-term picture is good, and I'm going to stay with that.
Peter Costa has a newsletter. It is called Costa's Corner. You can subscribe to it. It's part of Substack. The easiest way is to just Google Peter Costa, Costa's Corner. You can click on the link there, enter your email address, and it will be delivered to your inbox. Yesterday, or a couple of days ago, you wrote, the China deal is signed. OMG, the tariff trade war is over. Bye, Mortimer. Bye, Mortimer. And then you went on to say, the market is not going to 45,000. It is not going to 50,000 and beyond anytime soon. And stop acting like this 90-day ceasefire means anything more than nothing. That said, Peter, market's at 42,254 going into this morning. S&P at almost 6,000. NASDAQ futures up over 21,000. Are you certain that it's not going to 45,000 in the near future?
Well, in the near future, I don't think it's going there. I think that, at the end of the day, one of the things that we've completely forgotten about is markets and stocks trade based on earnings and what the earnings look like in the near term and long term.
In theory.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's theoretically, that's what you're investing in, but I mean, the fact that a lot of these companies have reported fairly good earnings for the first quarter, I think it's actually been better than most people expected. I think the second quarter is not going to be as good. I think the expectation is for the S&P is up about 7.5% year over year. I'm not sure if we're going to see that. I think that even though the tariff situation is calming down, there still are tariffs, and there still are reasons why certain countries and certain companies are losing business or changing direction on where their business is going. So I think for the next 3 to 6 months, we're going to see a choppy market. I don't think you're going to see that kind of bull rush back into into the stocks. But at some point, we might hit 45,000 this year. But I'm within the next 3 to 6 months, I don't see it. I see that it's going to be very choppy. There are going to be times where the market's going to sell off again. So, you got to be prepared.
A couple of years ago, Who would have believed we would have been at 40,000? Peter Costa, our time a little short this morning. Thank you so much. Great to be with you, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
There you go. Woof, woof.